Everyone experiences moments of hesitation when facing a daunting task, but for perfectionists, this hesitation can easily turn into a prolonged paralysis. The relentless pursuit of flawlessness creates a high-stakes internal environment where nothing less than perfect feels acceptable. This often spirals into a vexing cycle. The desire to excel triggers an overwhelming fear of failure, which then leads to procrastination, a delay that ironically hinders the very progress the perfectionist hopes to achieve. The conflict between wanting to do something well and fearing imperfection leaves individuals stuck in a place where action feels impossible and time slips away. This inner turmoil is rooted in a powerful mix of motivation and anxiety. Perfectionists set towering standards for themselves, driven by deep desires for approval, recognition, or self-worth linked to accomplishment. The fear that any work might fall short of these ideals creates intense pressure. Striving to meet such rigorous demands, they find themselves endlessly refining, revising, or postponing until the task feels just right. Yet that elusive "just right" is a moving target, endlessly deferred in the name of avoiding mistakes or criticism. This perfectionist paradox fosters a pervasive sense of frustration and inadequacy. Procrastination in this context serves as a protective shield. By delaying action, perfectionists momentarily avoid potentially disappointing outcomes, shielding themselves from judgment, both external and internal. They may rationalize the delay with practical reasons, needing more information, waiting for inspiration, or prioritizing other duties. These justifications seem sound on the surface, but their core function is self-preservation against the anxiety of not measuring up. The irony is that procrastination amplifies rather than alleviates stress, as looming deadlines and unfinished tasks create an undercurrent of dread. The struggle intensifies as deadlines approach. Faced with time running out, the perfectionist often shifts from a thoughtful approach to frantic work, fueled by spikes of adrenaline and panic. This last-minute rush rarely results in the ideal product, reinforcing negative self-judgments and strengthening the belief that earlier procrastination caused failure. The harsh internal critique that follows, "Why can't I ever do this right the first time?" feeds the cycle further. As a result, procrastination and perfectionism become intertwined behaviors, each perpetuating the other and creating barriers to satisfaction and achievement. This dilemma frequently extends beyond professional tasks into everyday life. A student delays starting a paper, convinced that their research is inadequate. An artist hesitates to share a new piece, doubting its merit. An employee stalls on a critical report, fearing it won't meet expectations. In each case, perfectionism fuels avoidance, and procrastination ensues, leading to unnecessary stress and a diminished sense of self-efficacy. The gap between aspiration and action widens, creating a disconnect that diminishes joy in accomplishment. The psychological roots of this paradox lie in self-worth being contingent on performance. When identity hinges on perfect results, the threat of failure feels existential. Any imperfection becomes a blow not just to a project, but to one's sense of value. This internal pressure system demands constant vigilance, self-monitoring, and over-preparation. Instead of fostering growth and learning, it engenders rigidity, fear, and ultimately avoidance. Biological factors also contribute. The anticipation of potential failure activates the stress response, flooding the brain with cortisol and impairing executive functions essential for planning and decision-making. Faced with overwhelming anxiety, the brain defaults to avoidance behaviors such as distracting activities or task postponement. Despite the relief avoidance provides in the short term, it compounds stress long-term, eroding confidence and reinforcing the cycle of procrastination. Navigating this internal conflict requires understanding that striving for excellence can coexist with timely action. Recognizing the damaging patterns of all-or-nothing thinking is crucial. Progress, not perfection, is the key to overcoming inertia. Shifting mindset from fear of failure to valuing growth and effort opens the door to breaking free from perfectionism's grip. This initial awareness lays the groundwork for practical strategies that channel ambition into productive, balanced effort rather than self-defeating paralysis. Human beings are naturally motivated by a drive for improvement and mastery, a concept Alfred Adler named striving for superiority. This drive is fundamental to personal growth, pushing individuals to overcome challenges and develop their potential. However, this innate desire can become distorted, especially in the context of perfectionism. Instead of inspiring healthy growth, the striving becomes a rigid, punitive pressure that fosters a sense of inadequacy and fuels procrastination. Adler's idea of superiority does not suggest dominance over others, but rather a personal quest to become better in ways that contribute positively to oneself and the community. Healthy striving involves setting realistic, attainable goals that promote competence and self-confidence. It's about progress and learning, appreciating growth even when imperfections remain. When this striving is balanced, it encourages resilience, adaptability, and sustained motivation. The trouble begins when perfectionism twists this drive into an unhealthy fixation on flawlessness. The individual becomes consumed by the idea that achieving superiority depends on error-free performance or flawless outcomes. This rigid mentality sets an impossible standard where anything short of perfect feels like failure. The internal narrative amplifies pressure. If I'm not the best or without mistakes, I'm worthless. This distorted striving promotes avoidance behaviors as a defense mechanism against the perceived threat of falling short. Procrastination arises as a paradoxical symptom of this distorted striving. The fear of imperfection generates anxiety so intense that it blocks action. The individual postpones starting tasks or delays finishing them, caught in a cycle of avoidance that preserves the illusion of control over potential failure. In this way, the motivation to excel is subverted, converting striving for superiority into a force that undermines achievement instead of facilitating it. Adler's model suggests that perfectionism-driven procrastination is a form of self-defeat. The individual's goal is to feel competent and worthwhile, but the excessive demands for perfection create exactly the opposite experience: repeated paralysis, decreased self-esteem, and chronic dissatisfaction. The person's self-image becomes tethered not to progress or effort, but to unattainable perfection, ensuring ongoing frustration and stalled growth. At its core, healthy striving is about embracing imperfection as part of the human experience. It requires recognizing that errors and setbacks are not signs of failure, but valuable feedback on the path to mastery. This mindset transforms challenges into opportunities for learning rather than threats to self-worth. In this way, the individual develops self-compassion and a more flexible approach to goals, which supports consistent action and adaptive growth. To foster healthy striving, Adler emphasized the importance of social interest, an orientation toward contributing to others and the broader community. When individuals see their goals as connected to a larger purpose beyond self-validation, the pressure of perfection eases. The motivation shifts from self-criticism to constructive engagement, providing a supportive framework for effort and risk-taking. Healthy striving also involves breaking free from rigid dichotomies of success and failure. Instead of viewing outcomes as either perfect or disastrous, individuals learn to appreciate a spectrum of progress, where each step forward is meaningful. This perspective encourages persistence despite imperfections, reducing the fear that fuels procrastination. Importantly, striving for superiority in Adler's sense is future-oriented yet grounded in present action. It's about making meaningful choices today that build toward long-term fulfillment. This temporal balance helps prevent the trap of all-or-nothing thinking that perfectionism often promotes, where only a perfect product seems worthwhile. In sum, Adler's concept of striving for superiority reveals the nuanced dynamics behind perfectionism and procrastination. While the drive to improve is natural and essential, its distortion into rigid demands fosters avoidance and self-defeat. Embracing healthy striving, focused on growth, social interest, and realistic self-expectations paves the path toward breaking free from this cycle and cultivating fulfilling, productive effort. Healthy aspiration is fundamentally different from the self-defeating patterns perpetuated by perfectionism. It is a balanced pursuit, motivated by realistic goals and grounded in self-compassion. Unlike the perfectionist's fixation on faultlessness, healthy striving embraces progress, even incremental improvements, as valuable and meaningful. This approach recognizes that mastery is a journey fraught with challenges and setbacks, but rich in learning opportunities. Far from fearing mistakes, healthy strivers view them as necessary steps toward growth. A key characteristic of healthy striving is flexible goal setting. Instead of setting impossible standards, individuals define objectives that are ambitious yet achievable. This balance allows space for adjustment based on circumstances, energy, and new insights. For example, instead of demanding a flawless presentation, a healthy striver prepares diligently and embraces imperfections as opportunities to refine skills for future talks. Such goals maintain motivation without overwhelming anxiety. Moreover, healthy striving cultivates realistic self-evaluation. It encourages honest but kind, reflection on strengths and weaknesses, avoiding distorted all-or-nothing judgments. This clarity supports effective learning and adaptation, breaking the cycle of harsh self-criticism that stifles progress. When faced with setbacks, instead of ruminating on failure, one focuses on what can be improved next time, fostering resilience and forward momentum. The difference is also apparent in self-talk. Healthy strivers develop an encouraging internal dialogue, replacing statements like, "This must be perfect," or "I'm a failure," with, "I'm doing my best, and each step matters." This compassionate voice soothes anxiety and nurtures courage to act despite uncertainty. Conversely, the perfectionist voice amplifies pressure, discouraging initiation and risking burnout. Healthy striving also involves prioritizing effort over outcome, recognizing that control lies most reliably in one's effort, not external results. Individuals focus on what they can influence. This perspective reduces fear of judgment and lessens procrastination, as action becomes valuable, independent of perfect results. Everyone experiences variables beyond control, external circumstances, others' perceptions, but effort remains a steady foundation. Another vital aspect is setting boundaries to protect well-being. The perfectionist may push excessive hours or sacrifice self-care in pursuit of unattainable ideals. Healthy striving rejects such extremes, acknowledging that rest, social connection, and mental breaks enhance sustainable performance. It promotes pacing that balances diligence with renewal, recognizing that resilience requires care alongside challenge. Healthy striving thrives within supportive environments. Collaboration with encouraging peers, mentors, or groups advocates positive feedback, shared learning, and reduced isolation. Constructive feedback, offered kindly and balanced with acknowledgement of progress, fosters confidence and corrects course without shaming. Such environments reinforce adaptive motivation, reducing the fear that perfectionists often associate with evaluation. In contrast, self-defeating striving fosters a rigid mindset that equates worth with achievement. This mindset breeds fear of imperfection, tendency toward all-or-nothing thinking, and dependence on external validation. It limits risk-taking, stifles creativity, and encourages avoidance. Instead of constructive challenge, it precipitates avoidance behaviors like procrastination or over-preparation that prevent genuine progress. Understanding these distinctions empowers individuals to shift from counterproductive perfectionism to adaptive striving. It invites cultivating flexible goals, realistic self-assessment, compassionate self-talk, effort focus, balanced self-care, and supportive social contexts. This transformation breaks the cycle of procrastination driven by fear and sets the stage for meaningful achievement rooted in growth and well-being. Breaking out of the paralyzing grip of perfectionism requires adopting a strategy centered on small-step progress. Rather than overwhelming oneself with the entirety of a task, individuals find it helpful to divide the work into bite-sized, manageable pieces. This approach lessens the pressure of needing to perform perfectly all at once and creates achievable milestones that build momentum. Starting with a single concrete action, writing one paragraph, drafting a sketch, or organizing a folder, instills a sense of accomplishment that fuels further effort. Adlerian psychology underscores the power of incremental progress as a foundation for self-efficacy, the belief in one's ability to succeed. Each small step completed reinforces confidence and reduces the anxiety that fuels procrastination. This process transforms an intimidating project into a series of achievable goals, each of which invites active engagement rather than dread. By focusing on the immediate next step rather than a flawless end product, individuals gradually move the work forward without becoming immobilized. Moreover, the small-step approach encourages flexibility and adaptation. When one breaks a task into parts, it becomes easier to reassess and adjust plans as circumstances evolve. If a specific step reveals unexpected challenges, it can be modified or temporarily set aside without abandoning the entire endeavor. This adaptability combats the all-or-nothing mindset that often ensnares perfectionists, allowing steady progress to continue even amid setbacks. An essential component is prioritizing completion over perfection. Completing an imperfect draft, presentation, or project leaves room for refinement and learning, whereas never starting guarantees stagnation. The small-step methodology emphasizes action and iteration over indefinite revision. Early versions serve as foundations to improve upon, signaling that excellence is built progressively rather than achieved instantly. This mindset alleviates the fear that work must be impeccable on the first attempt. Implementing this approach often involves time boxing, allocating specific limited periods to work on a task. Setting a timer for 20 to 30 minutes creates a focused window during which perfectionist tendencies can be set aside in favor of forward movement. When the timer ends, individuals pause and reflect on what was accomplished rather than fixating on incomplete details. This balance between productivity bursts and mindful evaluation supports sustainable effort and protects against burnout. Another practical tool is task prioritization. Listing subtasks according to importance and urgency helps channel energy where it counts most. By starting with simpler or higher impact components, individuals gain early wins that propel motivation. Tackling difficult or anxiety-provoking tasks becomes less daunting when preceded by achievements that build confidence. Prioritization also guards against getting bogged down in minutiae that perfectionism often magnifies. Additionally, the small-step progress model benefits from establishing external accountability. Sharing progress with trusted colleagues, mentors, or friends creates social reinforcement that encourages follow-through. Regular check-ins or joint work sessions provide structure and reduce isolation, making it easier to resist procrastination. The presence of others invested in one's progress lends both motivation and perspective, mitigating perfectionist fears through supportive connection. Visual progress trackers complement this approach. Using checklists, calendars, or digital tools to mark completed steps transforms abstract work into concrete evidence of advancement. Seeing a growing list of checked items counters the mental fog of "I haven't done enough" and shifts focus to the reality of what has been done. This positive feedback loop encourages continued effort and diminishes the intimidation of the unfinished whole. Mindfulness practices enhance small-step progress by fostering present-moment awareness. When perfectionism drives individuals to catastrophize future outcomes or ruminate over perceived flaws, mindfulness redirects attention to available actions. Staying grounded in the here and now helps break the spell of overwhelming anxiety, making even challenging tasks approachable. Breath-focused pauses or short contemplative exercises create mental space to embrace incremental steps without judgment. Ultimately, the small-step strategy reframes the relationship with work itself. Rather than a rigid test of worth, tasks become opportunities for engagement, creativity, and growth. Each modest achievement builds a positive narrative that counters the inner critic. Through patience, persistence, and compassion, individuals reclaim a sense of agency and joy in their efforts, breaking free from perfectionism's disabling grip. Struggling with perfectionism and procrastination often leads to harsh self-criticism that drains motivation. To counter this, cultivating self-encouragement is essential, a practice that transforms the inner dialogue from one of judgment to one of support and compassion. Self-encouragement tools foster resilience by shifting the focus away from flaws toward effort, progress, and inherent worth. The first tool is positive self-talk. It involves consciously replacing negative, punitive thoughts with affirming messages that acknowledge effort and small wins. Instead of saying, "I'm not good enough," the perfectionist learns to say, "I'm doing my best, and that is enough for now." Phrases that emphasize growth, like "every step forward counts" and "mistakes help me improve," reinforce a mindset that values learning over perfection. Practicing mindful self-compassion builds on this by inviting individuals to treat themselves with the kindness they would offer a friend. It includes techniques like pausing during moments of frustration to acknowledge the difficulty without self-blame, and reminding oneself that imperfection is a universal experience. This gentle acceptance reduces anxiety and fosters emotional balance, empowering the individual to resume action without the weight of harsh judgment. A third tool is the use of visual and written reminders of progress and positive qualities. Keeping a journal of daily achievements, no matter how small, creates tangible evidence of competence and growth. Visual cues, notes, affirmations, or images strategically placed in workspaces serve as ongoing encouragement. These reminders shift attention to strengths and successes, counteracting the all-too-frequent focus on shortcomings. Setting realistic expectations and celebrating progress rather than only outcomes helps retrain the brain toward positive reinforcement. Recognizing and appreciating incremental improvements, even if imperfect, fosters a sense of accomplishment that propels continued effort. These celebrations might be simple acknowledgements, checking off a completed step, sharing achievements with a supportive friend, or rewarding oneself for effort invested. Another effective tool involves breaking the cycle of all-or-nothing thinking. Perfectionists often see a task as either perfectly done or a total failure, which fuels procrastination. Learning to appreciate partial completion reframes success and diminishes fear. Statements like "good enough for now" or "this step brings me closer even if it's not flawless" help build tolerance for imperfection and encourage steady progress. Developing an action ritual can create a psychological cue for starting work. For example, setting a fixed workspace, playing a particular type of music, or beginning with a short breathing exercise signals the mind that it's time to engage. Rituals help bypass the mental reluctance caused by perfectionist doubts, establishing a reliable routine that fosters momentum. Accountability partnerships encourage self-encouragement through external support. Sharing goals and progress with a trusted person creates mutual encouragement and reduces isolation. The partner provides reminders, offers praise, and helps keep focus on effort rather than unattainable standards. External encouragement reinforces internal motivation, creating a positive feedback loop. Lastly, practicing self-forgiveness when delays and mistakes occur frees individuals from lingering guilt. Accepting that everyone experiences setbacks normalizes imperfection and prevents destructive rumination. Forgiveness creates emotional space to refocus on what is possible now, rather than dwelling on what was missed. Together, these self-encouragement tools form a comprehensive inner support system that counteracts the paralyzing effects of perfectionism and procrastination. They enable individuals to nurture motivation, build resilience, and cultivate a balanced approach to goals, one that prioritizes growth, effort, and well-being alongside achievement.